I know this sounds simple, maybe even strange, but tonight, I'm not standing here to impress you. I'm standing here to be honest, because somewhere in this loud, busy world, full of noise, scrolling, and silence at the same time, there are conversations that never happen, words that stay trapped behind fear, feelings that never find their voice. And I keep thinking about you not as a mystery to solve, not as a dream to chase, but as a human being with a heart, a story, and a universe inside you. I'm not here to ask for perfection. I'm not here to promise fairy tales. I'm here because I believe something powerful happens when two people simply talk, truly talk, when walls fall, when masks drop, when honesty becomes louder than fear. So this isn't a demand, it's an invitation. Women, you don't need to impress me. You don't need perfect words. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to talk with me. Because sometimes love doesn't begin with sparks or grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with a conversation that finally decides to happen. There is something quietly powerful about a conversation that almost happens. You can feel it in the air before a word is spoken. It lives in the pause between glances, in the space between two people who sense that something meaningful is waiting, but neither one has found the courage to open the door. I've spent a long time thinking about those silent spaces. Not the loud moments, not the dramatic gestures, but the quiet, trembling seconds when someone could speak and chooses not to. Those seconds change entire lives. I am not standing here to make promises wrapped in perfection. I am not here to pretend I have all the answers. I am here because I believe in something simple, something honest, something that feels almost old-fashioned in a world that moves too fast. I believe in talking, real talking, the kind that isn't filtered, rehearsed, or polished. The kind that happens when two people decide to put their guards down at the same time. Somewhere along the way, conversations became complicated. We learned how to text without feeling, how to scroll without seeing, how to watch lives without touching them. We built walls made of glowing screens and called it connection. We learned how to hide behind perfect pictures and clever captions. And slowly, quietly, we forgot how brave it is to sit across from someone and simply say what is true. I know that fear. I know what it feels like to hold words inside your chest until they feel heavier than silence. I know the moment when your heart tells you to speak, and your mind tells you to stay safe, and safety wins. It wins again and again until silence becomes a habit, until distance becomes comfortable, until the idea of a simple conversation starts to feel like a mountain you don't know how to climb. But here is what I have learned. Silence protects you, but it also keeps you alone. Silence keeps the peace, but it also keeps the distance. Silence is safe, but safety is not the same as connection. And connection is what makes this life feel alive. Women, I am not asking you to change who you are. I am not asking you to become fearless or perfect or louder than the world. I am asking for something far smaller and far more powerful. I am asking for a conversation because behind every strong heart is a story that deserves to be heard, and behind every guarded smile is a truth waiting for a safe place to land. I do not want the version of you that the world demands. I do not want the carefully edited, perfectly composed version that fits inside expectations. I want the real one, the one that laughs too suddenly, the one that overthinks at midnight, the one that wonders if anyone truly understands her, the one that sometimes feels strong and sometimes feels tired of being strong all the time. There is beauty in that honesty. There is courage in that vulnerability. And there is something deeply human about admitting that you want to be seen without pretending to be flawless. We live in a time where everyone is talking, but very few people feel heard. Words are everywhere, yet real understanding feels rare. Messages travel faster than ever, but connection moves slower than it ever has. We can reach thousands of people in seconds, yet we hesitate to reach the one person standing right in front of us. I think about how many stories never begin because the first conversation never happens. How many friendships, how many relationships, how many moments of laughter and understanding disappear before they are even born. Not because the feelings weren't real, not because the connection wasn't possible, but because fear whispered louder than hope. Fear is quiet, but it is persuasive. It says things like, what if they don't understand you? What if you say the wrong thing? What if you open your heart and it isn't received the way you hoped? What if the risk isn't worth the disappointment? And slowly, carefully, fear convinces you to stay silent. But there is another voice, softer and braver, that says something different. It says, well, Pat, if they do understand, What if your words bring comfort instead of confusion? What if the conversation you are afraid of becomes the moment you remember for the rest of your life? What if the risk is the very thing that makes life meaningful? I believe in that second voice. I believe in the courage it takes to listen to it. And I believe that conversations are where courage becomes real. There's something extraordinary about the moment two people decide to be honest with each other. The room doesn't change, the world doesn't pause, but something inside shifts, something opens, something begins. It is not loud or dramatic, it is quiet and steady and real. It is the beginning of understanding. You do not need perfect words to start that moment. You do not need a script or a plan or a flawless sentence. You only need sincerity. You only need the willingness to be real, because the truth is, nobody remembers perfect conversations. They remember real ones. They remember the laughter that came unexpectedly, the honesty that felt surprising, the silence that felt comfortable instead of awkward. They remember the feeling of being seen without being judged. And that feeling starts with a simple decision, the decision to talk. There's a kind of magic in listening, real listening, the kind that isn't waiting for your turn to speak, the kind that isn't searching for the right reply, the kind that exists purely to understand. That kind of listening changes people. It makes them feel safe. It makes them feel valued. It makes them feel like their voice matters. I want to create that space, a space where you can speak without fear of being misunderstood, a space where your thoughts don't have to be perfect and your feelings don't have to be organized. A space where you can simply be yourself without worrying about whether that is enough, because being yourself is always enough. Somewhere in this world, there are millions of conversations happening right now. Some are loud and joyful, some are quiet and thoughtful, some are difficult and emotional, some are light and playful, and every single one of them is shaping the lives of the people inside them. Words are powerful in ways we rarely notice. A single sentence can change the direction of a day. A single conversation can change the direction of a life. The right words, spoken at the right time, can become memories that stay with us forever. That is why I believe in this moment. That is why I believe in the courage it takes to speak. That is why I believe in the beauty of two people choosing honesty over silence. You do not need to impress me. You do not need to perform. You do not need to pretend to be stronger, wiser, or more confident than you feel. You only need to show up as you are. Because authenticity is more powerful than perfection could ever be. I know the world can be exhausting. I know expectations can feel heavy. I know the pressure to be everything at once can feel overwhelming. Strong but gentle, independent but open, confident but kind. It can feel like the world is constantly asking you to balance impossible contradictions. And maybe that is why conversations matter so much. Because in a real conversation, you don't have to be everything at once. You only have to be present. You only have to be honest. You only have to be real. There is freedom in that simplicity, freedom in knowing that you don't have to carry every expectation into every moment. Freedom in knowing that someone is willing to listen without asking you to be perfect. I am not here to change your life with grand gestures. I am here because I believe in small moments that grow into something meaningful. I believe in laughter that starts unexpectedly. I believe in stories shared late at night. I believe in the comfort of being understood without explanation. And all of that begins with a conversation. Not a perfect one, not a dramatic one, just a real one. I think about how many people are waiting for permission to be honest, waiting for a sign that it is safe to speak, waiting for proof that their voice will be welcomed instead of judged. And sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to say, "You can talk to me," because those four words carry more warmth than we realize. They carry reassurance. They carry acceptance. They carry the promise of understanding. You can talk to me. Those words create a bridge where there was once distance. They turn uncertainty into possibility. They turn silence into connection. And connection is what makes everything feel brighter. There is a quiet beauty in the way conversations unfold, the way one sentence leads to another, the way laughter interrupts seriousness, the way honesty invites more honesty. It feels natural, effortless, human. And in those moments, something extraordinary happens. You stop feeling like strangers. You stop feeling like observers. You start feeling like two people sharing the same space, the same moment, the same understanding. That is what I'm asking for, not perfection, not promises, just the chance to share a moment of honesty. Because sometimes the most meaningful journeys begin with the smallest step, the smallest word, the smallest decision to speak instead of stay silent. There is courage in vulnerability. There is strength in honesty. There is beauty in simplicity. And somewhere inside all of us is the desire to be understood, to be heard, to be seen without filters or expectations. I believe conversations are the doorway to that understanding. I believe they are the bridge between two separate worlds. I believe they are the beginning of something meaningful, and every beginning starts with someone brave enough to speak first, someone willing to take the risk, someone willing to choose connection over comfort, someone willing to step into the unknown with nothing but honesty and hope, and the quiet belief that maybe, just maybe, the words waiting inside their heart are worth sharing, worth hearing, worth the risk of stepping forward into the moment where silence finally gives way to the sound of a voice that has been waiting far too long to be heard, and the air shifts just slightly as the first sentence begins to form, and the space between two people becomes smaller and warmer, and filled with possibility as the distance that once felt permanent starts to fade into something softer and more human and more alive, as the simple act of speaking transforms uncertainty into connection and hesitation into courage, in the quiet room becomes a place where honesty can breathe and stories can unfold, and the fragile but powerful magic of a real conversation begins to take shape and grow into something either person fully expected, but both somehow needed more than they ever realized. And the mom and continues to open gently like a door that was never locked, only waiting to be pushed just enough to reveal what has always been on the other side, waiting patiently in the quiet for someone brave enough to step closer and say the words that change everything, without even trying to change anything at all. And the silence that once felt heavy becomes lighter and lighter until it feels like the beginning of something that has no clear ending, yet still feels undeniably real and present and alive in the space between two people who finally decided to talk and keep talking and keep discovering the simple, powerful beauty of sharing thoughts and laughter and questions and quiet pauses that no longer feel uncomfortable, but instead feel safe and warm and filled with the quiet understanding that this moment exists because someone chose to speak instead of remain silent, and chose to listen instead of turn away, and chose to open the door instead of wondering forever what might have been waiting on the other side of it all along. And in that choice lives the beginning of every story that ever mattered, and every connection that ever grew, and every memory that ever stayed long after the words themselves faded into the background of time, where the feeling of being understood continues to live and breathe and echo softly in the heart long after the conversation itself has drifted gently into the quiet again, and the possibility of another conversation remains waiting patiently in the distance, like a horizon that never quite ends and always invites another step forward into the unknown, where words are still waiting to be. There is a quiet kind of courage that doesn't look heroic from the outside. It doesn't come with applause or dramatic music or a moment that the world stops to notice. It happens in the smallest decisions. It happens when someone chooses honesty over comfort, openness over distance, connection over silence. It happens when a heart decides that being understood is worth the risk of being seen. I think about how often we walk past each other, carrying entire universes inside us, thoughts we never say, stories we never share, questions we never ask. We move through crowded rooms and busy streets and glowing screens, surrounded by people and still somehow separated by invisible walls, not because we want to be distant, but because distance feels safe. Distance feels predictable. Distance protects us from the uncertainty of what might happen if we let someone step closer. But safety has a strange cost. It keeps our hearts protected, yes, but it also keeps them quiet. It keeps them waiting. It keeps them wondering what life would feel like if we stopped guarding every door and allowed at least one to open. There is something deeply human about wanting to be understood, not admired from afar, not guessed or assumed, understood. The kind of understanding that doesn't require explanations, the kind that feels like someone sees the truth behind your words and hears the meaning behind or silence, and yet we hesitate. We pause at the edge of conversation as if it were the edge of a cliff. We convince ourselves that maybe tomorrow will be easier, maybe another moment will be better, maybe the right time will magically appear without us having to create it. And so the moment passes, then another, until silence becomes familiar and familiarity becomes routine. But the truth is, The right moment rarely arrives on its own. It waits for courage. It waits for intention. It waits for someone to say, "This moment is enough." Women, I am not asking for grand declarations or perfect words. I am asking for presence. The kind of presence that exists when two people choose to be fully here instead of half somewhere else. The kind of presence that makes time feel slower and the world feel quieter and the moment feel real, because presence is rare, attention is rare, real listening is rare, and when those things appear, they feel like sunlight breaking through clouds that have been there longer than we realized. I've learned that conversations do not need to be extraordinary to be meaningful. They do not need dramatic beginnings or cinematic endings. They only need sincerity. They only need the willingness to let the moment unfold without forcing it to be anything more than it is. Sometimes the most beautiful conversations start with ordinary questions. How was your day? What made you laugh? What made you think? What made you pause and look at the sky for a second longer than usual? These questions sound simple, but they open doors. They create space. They invite stories to step forward and be heard. And stories are powerful. They are the way we make sense of the world. They are the way we understand each other. They are the way we turn strangers into people who feel familiar. I want to hear those stories. Not because they need to be impressive or dramatic, but because they are yours. Because they shape the person standing in front of me. Because they carry the details that make you unique in a world full of similarities. There is beauty in the small details. The favorite song you play when you need comfort. The way you think when the world feels quiet. The dreams you don't always say out loud because they feel too personal or too fragile. Those details matter. They create the texture of who you are, and conversation is the place where those details come to life. We spend so much time trying to be understood without actually speaking. We hope people will notice, we hope they will guess, we hope they will somehow see through the walls we carefully built. But hope alone cannot replace honesty. Understanding cannot grow in silence. Words are the bridge between what we feel and what we share. They are imperfect, yes, but they are powerful. Even when they stumble, even when they come out in the wrong order, even when they feel incomplete, they still carry truth, and truth is what makes connection real. I think about how many times someone wanted to speak and stopped themselves at the last second. How many times a message was typed and erased. How many times a sentence formed in someone's mind but never reached the air. Those almost moments are invisible, but they shape the paths we walk. Imagine how many new paths could appear if those words were spoken instead of hidden, because every conversation is a doorway. Some lead to laughter, some lead to understanding, some lead to unexpected friendship, some lead to moments that become memories long before we realize they matter. You never know which conversation will change the way you see the world. You never know which sentence will stay with you years later. You never can how which moment of honesty will become the story you tell again and again. That uncertainty is not something to fear. It is something to appreciate. It means life still holds surprises. It means connection is still possible. It means the future is still open. I am not asking for certainty. I'm not asking for guarantees. I'm asking for the chance to step into the unknown together, one conversation at a time, because uncertainty is where possibility lives. There is a quiet strength in choosing to be open. It is not loud or dramatic. It does not demand attention. It simply exists as a decision to show up, a decision to speak, a decision to listen. And listening is its own kind of love. Real listening says, your words matter, your thoughts matter, your voice deserves space. It says, you are not just noise in the background of a busy world. You are someone worth hearing. Where everyone wants to feel that. Everyone wants to feel that their voice carries meaning beyond the moment it is spoken. I want to create that space, a space where conversation feels safe instead of